the Dock with Pastor Troy. Glad you're joining us today. We're all about conversations that propel your faith out of the shallows and into the deep. We're looking forward to having a great show for you. We're starting a new series today. We're getting launched in a way here. So get ready to join us on this fine ride. I don't know where you're watching us right now, but we are available on wherever you're watching us. But we want to tell you where else you can find us. You need to have 2 ways to find us, maybe even 3 just in case. We're on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Facebook, Roku, Rumble, and Sermonet. Well, I say that like an auctioneer does it, right? Go to Roku. If you go to Roku, you got a Roku TV, download the Sermonet app, look up the On the Dock with Pastor Troy channel. On all these other partners, just find the On the Dock with Pastor Troy channel. You'll find us. And our social media, we'd love to hear from you on our social media partners, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and Twitter. Please send me an Instagram picture of you drinking with your On the Dock coffee cup if you got one, because I just want to see if my Instagram works. Please send me a note. Once you find our social media and our platforms, please hit subscribe, like, notify, and share us with other people, because we've got great content here. We want you to be a part of that and be a part of every cast we put out. We put those out on Tuesdays and Thursdays each week. Fresh stuff. And by the way, we want you to be a partner with us. You can come to On the Dock and be a partner or a sponsor. And by the way, Colt, if you give them a camera, you can get one of these fancy cups. That's how you get that cup. Get that cup if you have it. Fill it up with something good to drink. Sit down with us on the dock right now. We've got a great show for you. We'd love to have you get one of those. You can go to Patreon and download that app. Download my Patreon. Download the app and look for On the Dock with Pastor Troy. And again, be that sponsor or partner with us. If you can't find that, you say, I don't know how to download apps. Go to onthedock.org. Go to the old-fashioned website, www.onthedock.org. There is a link to the Patreon site, as well as links to all our platforms and other information, and an embedded viewer. You can watch us right there. It's a good way to do it, and you can see how to get to our archives as well. You can always email us if you got other questions at info@onthedock.org. You can email us and ask us how to get a cup. We'll get you information, and we're ready to go. We got a great show for you. Around the table here, I got an anchor team here. To my right is my lovely wife with her back from the beauty shop, straight hair, Mother Beth. Mother Beth? I'm not hearing you. Let's there you go. Honey. Now I can hear you. Hi, baby. I can hear you, baby. Come.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, there she is. Okay. We got Mother Beth at the table here. We got to get her mic on, you know. What happens if her mic's not on? She starts kicking me, and I don't want to be kicked today. I'm a little weak. Back to the far right over there across the table. Haley Odolini there. Haley.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to On the Dock. Haley's part of our team here. She does a lot of our content work on our website. She's an incredible graphics artist, but she's also the executive director and founder of the Mosaic Initiative. So check out that podcast about her, and you find out more about the Mosaic Initiative. Look that up at the mosaicinitiative.org. Is that right?
Yeah, you can do org or .com.
You got both .com?
Yeah.
Good. We do too.
It helps. Yeah, it really does.
Either .com or .org. Check that out. And we are going to be talking about in this episode the U.S. Church and anti-human trafficking work in Thailand. You know, we got a lot of work here at Community Faith Church and our foundation that I work with, Hands Up Foundation. We've done a lot of work in Thailand. And doing that work, we got on the radar of this incredible young lady that hails out of Boston, Massachusetts, weighing in. We don't know, again, what she weighs in at. We'd never ask a young lady that. That's just
Cape Air asked me, actually, how much I weigh before
I know it. Cape Air is barbaric. Hey, guys, she flew in on Cape Air. She's from a country where the airlines are just phenomenal service, just everything. You get on Cape Air, there's not a toilet. There's a porthole.
Doesn't really instill confidence when they ask you your weight.
It's got 9. No, they ask you. They ask you they ask your weight, and then they weigh your bags, and they put it all together and go, that's too much. And the thing about me and Beth here, we don't even try to fly Cape Air because we'd have to buy like 4 seats. You know, just like, give us 4 seats. Yeah, because you haven't seen Mother Beth and I. We're small, but we bring at least 6 bags. You know, and they load them in the trunk. Sometimes they load the bags up in the front of the nose of the plane. Like, what are they doing? They put them under the propeller. That's called ballast. When you're using your bags as ballast and they're checking your weight and they look at you and they go, you're gonna have to lose a leg. You know, can you take that leg off? Oh, yeah, we can make it. She came in here on Cape Air, and she just came from Nashville. She hugged the tree line. She was actually able to check. She's never been in the middle part of the country. She's hails out of Boston, Massachusetts, and goes out to sometimes the West Coast, flies over and goes to big countries and all around the world. But she finally got in God's country here. But to get to God's country, you have to fly at treetop level. And she's, looking mom and pop's house as you fly over, just barely hugging the trees. And she came in on Cape Air, and she's going to go out in Cape Air. And hopefully your dad doesn't hunt me down someday and just take me out, So we got Ruth Jaensubhakij here at the table, and she is from Harvard College, a senior student doing work. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself. So Ruth, we're excited to have you on the dock.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Well, give us again, to tell us a little bit about your work. You've been here as a co-host on some of our shows, but right now you are the subject. So as the subject, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you've lived. Your travel history is extensive as far as where you've lived. It's amazing. So go ahead and share that with our On the Dock people while they get settled into that fine beverage they have in that fine On the Dock coffee mug. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm currently a rising senior at Harvard College. So I'm 21 years old, and I was born in Singapore, lived there until I was about 3. Then from the time I was 3 till I was about 11, I lived in the suburbs of New York. Was there, got to see a little bit of the East Coast, driving up and down with my family. Then we went to London, lived there for 2 years, 2011 to 2013. Got to see a bit of Europe. Then we went back to Singapore in 2013. My family's still there now. I went to high school there, graduated, and then in the fall of 2018, I came back to the U.S., to Boston, have been at Harvard, and that's where I've been basically ever since.
Amazing travel history for a young lady like yourself. Your parents are still in Singapore. Has Singapore been hit hard by COVID? Have you guys been affected by that there?
It's been mixed. I would say that in terms of death rate, compared to the U.S., we've had less than 35 deaths total, I want to say. So really under control in that.
Your country's done a very good job there of segregating and getting people separated and making sure and managing it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think people really take it quite seriously. We were hit with SARS pretty badly back in 2003, and so I think good example set for what
our
to do
people
this
take
time.
it less sensitive. We have raves and parties since then, and now we've got the Delta variant just flying all around here right now again.
Yeah.
We almost had it completely stamped out of this area.
Yeah, and with the Midwest too, I think that we started locking down things before we really had the wave. So by the time that we actually had the wave, people were kind of tired of complying, and then they didn't anymore.
I'm telling you right now, we're not going
And
back.
it
We're not
got
going.
hit
We're not going
hard.
back to lockdowns. If we go back to lockdown, it's going to be John
It's
Paul
not gonna
Jones.
go
Give me
well.
liberty or give me death. That's when you get in the middle of
Yeah.
America. Everybody's like, I'm not going back in. Give me COVID. So we're kind of there now. And we're just kind of we're a little hunkered down. We're not locked back down, but we got a lot of households with it and stuff. Are you seeing the Delta variant in Singapore? How about Boston as well?
Boston, I think not as bad yet, although I honestly haven't really been keeping up too much with it. I think it's slightly better there. In Singapore, definitely so. I think they're entering another lockdown right about now because there's a lot of air traffic between Singapore and India.
And Thailand's just completely in a lockdown again. They're on their
that's
third or
right.
fourth major lockdown in there.
That's right.
They've been locked down a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
That's actually, Thailand was doing really well. They actually never got hit with it in the first place.
In the first round, right.
They kept it so good up until about 3-4 months ago. Then all of a sudden, it got quite bad.
Yeah, I noticed in that first round they were able to. They did things to mitigate and really didn't get it into the country.
Thailand and Vietnam both did a fantastic job.
Well, tell us a little bit. Harvard College. You said your sister's going to be coming in here to go to school at USC. That's in the University of Southern California in California.
That's right.
The other side, that lower, lesser university out there.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's a big school. Great activities.
Yeah, I mean they've got the nice weather. They've got the better sports teams. Not to knock Harvard sports teams.
Listen to what they got the better sports teams. That's a big sister. She's like, I just lost my microphone there, big guy. There you go. There we go. I'm back. Hello. It went out to you. She goes, they got better sports teams. That's her being nice to her little sister. Yeah. You got good sports. You can do that. I got book learning and super professors. And although USC is not a slouch of a school.
They're a tough school too.
Good school. What is she gonna be? What is she gonna be taking there?
Well, she actually wants to study theater. So if you want to study theater, USC
she's
is
in the
miles ahead of Harvard.
Well, now I know why she didn't go to Harvard. You don't go to Harvard to study theater, do you?
Certainly. Well, you can, but
I've never heard anybody go,
not the most
by the
popular
way.
thing.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. So, yeah, all right. Tell us about your path to Harvard. How did somebody from Singapore end up in the Ivy League, the Ivy League College of Harvard? How did you pick Harvard all the way around the world?
Yeah, I mean, because I had gone to been in the American school system growing up, and then we thought we were going to be back in the U.S. after our stint in London, so my parents put me into an international school there. By the time I got to Singapore, I was pretty much settled into the American school system, which is really different from the Singaporean school system in terms of when the school year starts, when you take these really important tests that determine what kind of school you can go to. So the easiest was for me to stay in an international school.
And just for the record, she speaks, she's lived here a lot, but she speaks perfect English. You wouldn't know.
No accent.
You wouldn't know that she's half Thai. You're half Thai, right?
I am half
Your father's Thai.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume you can speak a little Thai.
I can
Okay.
speak a little Thai.
Go ahead. Say hello to everybody in Thai somehow.
Sawadee ka.
Swadee ka. There you go. Cup kun cup.
There you go.
I only got a few. I got to remember which is the ka and the cup, the O and the A. You know, I tend to get the sexes wrong in the language there.
Yeah, the pronouns are big.
Thai is a very difficult language to learn.
It is.
Because they got formal language and then more of a street language. And
yeah, and I mean also like even the alphabet, there's 44 consonants and 22 vowels.
44 consonants.
Consonants.
Not even just total characters.
You
No,
understand
there's
a lot.
22 vowels.
22 vowels.
Each diphthong is its own vowel. Instead of here,
my.
you combine the A and the E to make whatever. Like there, it's its own vowel.
And all you
there's
people-
short and long versions.
Now,
of
all you
everything.
people thinking that we Americans are superior people because we got the language, you know, we got A, E, I, O, and U.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. We're dumber than a box of rocks. Most of us can't speak more than one language, and we don't even do that well. We got Southern slang. I'm going to fix it.
They say that there's several languages that have like sounds that to a native English speaker
You just
can't
can't
even
make.
hear.
And most,
Like,
Yeah, you can't hear the
in,
difference.
I know, like in
Yeah.
Hindi, there's like a decent amount of sounds. It's
could-
usually what gets me is a g sound.
I had a hard time I took French in high school and do the just that one, the one vowel there, whatever it is. I had trouble with. I failed that almost bad. But yeah, you not only do you speak perfect English, you speak some Thai. You speak. What do you speak when you're in Singapore?
I mean, I speak English like
I know you do, but-
99% of the time when I'm there.
Well, I can tell that. I mean, but what else can you throw out?
Mandarin would be the
Mandarin
other language.
Chinese.
I can get around in Mandarin.
Okay, so do you just feel, if you're out there on the dock right now having your wonderful cup of coffee, enjoying the show, don't you just feel dumber than a box of rocks right now? This girl's at Harvard College. No.
Different upbringing.
No, it's a different upbringing, but we all think, man, I'm proud to be American, you know, or at least I run free, you know. That's true. But I am proud to be American, but I am so thankful that our language is simpler than this. But you know why? Our language is young. It's still developing, you know.
I mean, it's hard to learn if you're not a native
Right.
English speaker. There's so many rules and there's so many exceptions to the rules.
yeah.
So it is a hard
Do you
language
just have to
learn.
go to learn Thai? Do you just have to tell Dad, speak Thai only to me for 5 years?
Well, I've actually been learning it at school.
Oh,
and So
really?
in college, like Harvard's great about offering tons of different languages. And so I have one classmate. So, we had two teachers at one point. So it was a 1-to-1 teacher-student ratio. And
That's what you
our
get when you go to Harvard College.
I mean, when you study an obscure language, that's what you get.
Oh, man.
And, our homework is to call our parents. We each have one parent who's fluent in Thai. And so call my dad, have a little conversation about whatever
That's great.
topic we're learning about. It's been really nice. Yeah.
Man, that's great. You got to learn some sort of language that your parents don't know, so you can talk under your breath bad about them. No, you sound like you have a great family. That's amazing. You went to Harvard College. You picked Harvard College. Gosh, I wish you'd picked like Emory University where I went or Southern Methodist, but I mean it's just lower level Ivy. You picked the top tier. When you got there, what program are you in? What program did you choose to be a part of?
Yeah, so I'm part of a department called Social Studies, which basically means that you can take classes from anthropology, sociology, history, government, economics.
And you're into you like the anthropology stuff?
Yeah, definitely been more into the anthropology
and that's why
stuff.
that's why she's here on the dock. She's in anthropology and she wants to study Cro-Magnon man. And as she did her research around the world,
Number one specimen.
Let me move the camera here.
is Pastor Troy.
Cro-Magnon man right here. It's a living specimen. I'm a living specimen. And people know that Mother Beth's husband, her fine husband, is the wonderful person to be studied. So she's come always
She
out to
seems
do.
so impressed.
Yeah.
too.
Cro-Magnon man. So when I think social studies, I think of, we're going to talk about the pygmy people in South America and then Papua New Guinea people. Yeah. And then here you are, you're going to do social studies. You're doing immigration. You're doing.
Yeah, so I have a secondary or like a minor in ethnicity, migration, and rights, which is like
Incredible.
pretty unique.
And you're taking social studies on. I know you're probably looking at the history of it as well and the development of people, but you're looking also at the active, ongoing stuff currently.
Yeah.
So there's a melting.
Anthropology,
You're watching it
ethnography,
melt.
It's all about culture, and that can be very like present tense.
So you're for your studies. You're on. I always think of social studies as more past, but you're actually on the surfboard on the wave of it right now.
Yeah, that's what I was more interested in doing.
That's really cool.
People can do different things within the department, but that's what I was interested in.
Well, we're gonna have a fun time with you. You're gonna give us some schooling.
What are you hoping to do with your degree? Or
Oh, good question.
That's a
Yeah,
great question.
senior year's coming up.
Mother Beth's on it.
Been getting this question a lot. I'm hoping to go to law school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And are you going to try to advocate for issues and be a justice lawyer of some sort? Or are you just going to go be like, you're going to be like an ambulance chaser? You're going to be, what is your plan?
I'm interested in international human rights law.
I had a feeling that was what you were going to say.
What exactly I do with that, I'm not sure. You know,
Right.
it can be helpful.
Yeah.
You can work at an NGO and having that knowledge is like you can do the legal stuff
Right.
for an
Yeah.
NGO,
Well-
or you can, be more on the policy side. I have no idea.
Well,
I
I'm
wanna
excited
do.
about what you're going to do. And when you get into that role, next time I'm in Thailand, we'll drag you with us and you can go and help us get some of the Cambodian labor workers out of the local prisons.
I would
that-
love
that are
that.
stuck in the jails in
Yeah.
Thailand because they were brought in to do labor, then they're betrayed by their laborers.
Yeah.
And then we need some people to step up in the legal world that aren't there just to make all
And
of us.
knowledge of international
Yeah.
law and like an understanding of culture and context, I think is
It's so important.
so like invaluable. Like you see that over and over when you talk to NGOs that one of the largest things that they face is like trying to learn how to work with.
And
like, government
NGOs need
systems
access to
and-
lawyers that
yeah.
do that kind of stuff big time
Yeah.
because to me, there's
So
a lot of lawyers out there and they want to make big money and stuff. And we all have to make a living. We all have to feed ourselves and our families. But that's exciting that you're getting the knowledge of what's going on in culture and then getting in there and figuring out where the justice breakdowns. And by the way, to let people know this, I mean, you're at Harvard College, you're from Singapore. What's your background faith-wise? What's your faith experience?
Yeah, so my parents both became Christians when they were in like college, grad school, and so I was raised in the church. Was a really solid community for me growing up at each, of the different countries we lived in. Always found like a good church family, and so have definitely continued with that in college. Been pretty involved with like crew, like fellowship on campus and
Fantastic.
private church. Yeah,
And where do you go to church in Singapore?
in Singapore, my family goes to Redemption Hill Church.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. That's a jamming church there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. What's cool about this is you got a personal faith relationship with Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Harvard College brain. You've got a heart for social studies and immigration and anthropology. And you're not looking at Cro-Magnon man. You're actually looking at something more relevant. You're looking at people today and how we engage. And then you want to be a lawyer and go fight and help right justice. I mean, next thing you know, we're going to be calling you Wonder Woman.
We already are. I think.
Yeah, I think so, Wonder Woman. That's
Thank
just
you.
amazing. We need more young people to think like this. We need more young people to think coming out of the gate that I want to do something significant. And what I like about what you're doing is you're paying your dues. She's a senior student. She's doing this study we're going to talk about in a minute. And she got on the horn, did her study, dug into it, and connected with us. And she'll tell you how she did that. But what I like is she's willing to get on a plane as a senior student, 21 years old, fly out and meet Cro-Magnon man. Right here. Come out, meet Cro-Magnon man, and find out about what we're doing in Thailand, which connects with what she's trying to study. And she's not sitting in a classroom. She can do Zoom and all that stuff, of course, but she wanted to come and engage and find out what's really going on. And she spent significant time here working with us and learning about what's going on with Community Faith Church, our work in Thailand, Hands Hope Foundation that I lead, and its work in planting churches in Thailand, and our other partnerships over there. She's been with all those folks and talking with them. So I love the fact that you're paying your dues. You're in the trenches. And you go Harvard. She's a college student. She's big haired, big head, long gray hair. She doesn't have long gray hair, but you think of people that are in the classroom. They don't leave the classroom. You've got the academic robe on. You're walking around campus like you're the graduate, but you're not. You're in the trenches. You're going out. You've spent time. Tell you were telling us a little bit about places you've spent in some of your internships.
Yeah, so the summer after my freshman year, I worked at a summer camp in Chinatown in Boston, working with low-income families, and I was a teacher basically, so had a classroom of 13-year-old students, rising 8th graders, and was teaching them science, math, history, ethnic studies, English, taking them to the park, field trips. We went camping. It was awesome.
Nothing like a bunch of awkward 8th graders.
No, nothing. Truly nothing like it.
What else have you done since then?
I think that's universal.
Universal.
Oh yeah,
it is.
8th graders
It doesn't
are
matter where you are.
terrible everywhere.
Yeah, they are.
And
You're
then
so we know you're tough. So okay, go ahead.
yeah. Then last summer I was working for International Justice Mission, which is kind of how I got into more of the anti-human trafficking side. So I was supposed to be in DC doing stuff actually with like their South Asian response team. But then pandemic happened, got sent home to Singapore, figured out there was a connection through my church to the one person who's in the IJM Singapore office. And she was kind enough to give me an internship for the summer, so I got to work with their team in the Philippines, doing stuff with to prevent OSEC, which is the online sexual exploitation of children.
Wow.
Got to work with their team in Thailand that they're doing anti-labor trafficking work on the fishing boats in Bangkok.
I
Did I mention the fact that she's a rising senior and she's 21 years old? She's got more experience than she's got more experience than I have. I'm well traveled and she's way better traveled than I am. If we could just get more people, young people her age, engaging at this level, we can turn some of these problems around, I believe. I think it's amazing, your background. Just amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, your parents got to be just tickled to death, and just me getting to know you, I'm excited. I'm now your best advocate. I'll be on your side forever.
Thank you.
So tell us about you picked Harvard. You got to Harvard. You're in this program, and tell us about. Just give us kind of the overview of this thesis project you're doing. Tell us about what you're doing here.
Yeah. So originally I was pretty inspired by my work with IJM last summer. And as I'm thinking about, we have to write this senior thesis. It's a 9-month long research project. Dig in. I knew I wanted to do interviews and really get to work with people, ethnography, just study the way that people live and how their lives are as they do this work. Originally wanted to work with IJM and thinking about labor trafficking, the fishing industry in Thailand. But as it became clear that travel was not going to be happening, I realized that, it's a fairly inaccessible population, especially right now, and it was going to be very difficult to do the kind of deep research that I was hoping to do. So talking to my advisor, thinking about what am I passionate about? Where is my heart at? What is something that's related to this that I can really dig into? And thinking about wanted to stick with anti-human trafficking, and the relationship to the church had come up several times. Originally, I was going to study different factors that influence the work that anti-human trafficking organizations do. So a lot have financial ties. They're sponsored by the Walmart Foundation, things like that. And I was going to think about the church as just one of those factors, but it became clear that I have a lot of experience in the church, have seen, worked for IJM, how closely tied faith can be to anti-human trafficking responses, and thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to study. And given that I was going to be doing everything remotely, I thought if I can find churches in the U.S. that I can work with who are doing this kind of work, that would be really amazing. Then I can get to kind of see both sides. Was hoping to spend some time in Thailand. It's not going to happen, unfortunately, for a while. But yeah, that's kind of how I landed at where I'm at. So I'm looking specifically at groups that are doing anti-sex trafficking work and in Thailand, all over Thailand, and their relationships with churches in the U.S. Yeah,
I like it.
That's just amazing work, and what a bite off the apple there, and you're doing a great job with that, and I can't wait to get in there. I think we'll have to come back later in one of our rounds and dig in a little bit more about the application of faith and this and how it works as a pro or maybe sometimes it can be a con. I know that, but I do think faith has an advantage in dealing with these kind of things that are very dark, and I'd love to hear more about that in a little bit. Just tell me a little bit more about. You decided to do this thesis, the work in Thailand. You've had to modify it because COVID's not letting you just run around the world, and it's changed. On fishing in Thailand, I have fished in Thailand. Speaking of, I know you're not talking about that kind of fishing, but I've been to Koh Chang. We went to Koh Chang a few years ago with Daniel and Steffi Voppel from Tamar Center. They're our partners over there, and I know you've been interviewing them, and they're part of your study. And we went up to Koh Chang. Koh Chang's an island. Is it Elephant Island? Is that what it means?
Yeah.
And beautiful island, lovely place. And so I wanted to go fishing. I deep sea fish all around the world. Alaska we fished, and Gulfs, and everywhere we fished. So we went out and got a deep sea. We chartered ourselves out on a deep fishing boat. And boy, I tell you what, we fished for hours and hours. Did we bring anything home?
No.
We brought nothing home. I'm a very good fisherman.
Those Thai fish are elusive.
I've caught what's not haddock? What's the big fish we get there? Halibut. Many big halibut. All kinds of fish. I'm just really good. I've fished my whole life. I grew up around Destin, Florida. I've deep sea fished, and I took Daniel out of the boat, and we were ready to go out and have a good day. And we almost caught nothing as a boat. And as I talked to the fisherman, I said, golly, you would think you'd put us on some fish here. It's a tourist site. And he said that the Chinese had come down and they've pretty much taken all the fish with the long line, the net liners and stuff, which made it very difficult for the local people, even for just sport fishing and tourists. The fishing was very, very difficult in Thailand because you get out in the Gulf of Thailand, and then we were up on the Cambodian border doing that, and they said their trawlers come in there and their process ships and just clean out that.
Yeah,
that
you
water.
could do a whole nother podcast series just on the Thai fishing industry and what goes on
absolutely.
There is an interesting report. I haven't read it in its full entirety, but IJM did put it out. There is one specifically about the fishing industry, and it's ties to like forced labor and things like that.
That's where all of their work in Thailand is focused.
Yeah,
around
because I've noticed that.
We had a great experience, but the
a
fishing,
lot on that.
it sounds like it's
very
almost
interesting. You
like
should look it
the
up.
fish for the Thailand have been almost robbed from it's their own waters too. They're coming into their waters to take the fish. And we got back to the dock, fortunately, and you had to walk through this whole pier complex there. And fortunately, there were people that could actually fish better than me in Thai waters. I don't know where they got the fish. We bought fish and brought it home. So we helped the Thai industry at least for a moment there. So. But no, I know you're talking about different industry, but it'd be interesting to talk about that sometime. Just let me find out, how in the world did I get an email and a text from a young lady by the name of Ruth at Harvard College? How did the pastor at Community Faith Church get a call? The executive director, I'm also the executive director of the Hands of Hope Foundation. How did you get our number? I mean, I don't know what happened.
Honestly, it was through Google. So,
oh no,
I
thought we were a shadow band or something on Google.
No.
Hey, we're on Google Podcasts. So Google Podcasts on the docs there. So maybe tell us about it. You got us on Google.
Yeah, so, as I was doing some exploratory research, I was just thinking how many of these organizations exist and which of them are connected to churches. So I was just Googling every phrase I could think of. I had some connections. My parents are friends with some missionaries in Chiang Mai that I was able to get connected
Chiang
with.
Mai is in the northern area of Thailand, and Chiang Mai is the heaviest amount of Christians in the whole country of Thailand would be in the Chiang Mai area.
I believe that's
very
correct,
heavily
yeah.
mission orientated when you're up there. And so we haven't really done much. We've never been in Chiang Mai yet.
It's beautiful.
Everybody wants to take us there.
I love Chiang
It's
Mai.
a little more cool. I hear it's a little
been.
cooler and a little nicer and stuff.
Yeah.
But so you were you looking for churches? Were you looking for churches? Were you looking for denominations sending money to some people? Or were you looking for churches that were actually local churches that were actually engaged actively?
Well, I was looking firstly for organizations. So I wasn't looking for churches as much as I was looking for what organizations are doing this work in Thailand. And from there, I was scouring their reports, their websites, looking who are these organizations partnering with.
What are these? Where are the targets, and who is the effective places they're connected?
Yeah.
With?
So a lot of it was I would reach out to the organizations and have a call with them first and ask them are there churches that you partner with? What do those partnerships look like? And is there anywhere the partnership is deep enough and meaningful enough that someone would be able to talk to me about it, and not just, we're giving money, because that does happen a lot,
Right.
That's quite common. A lot of these organizations are started by people who come from churches in the U.S. They go around, they talk to people, have a lot of support from all over. But that's not exactly what I was interested in.
But you're looking for more than somebody just writing a check and sending it over. You're looking for a real engaged relationship.
Yeah, I think there's much more to study there.
Very cool. So you found us on Google.
Yep, I sent
What makes me feel better? We spend a lot of
email through Hands of Hope,
That's
through
right.
your church website, and to the Tamar Center.
I saw it. She was persistent. Let me just say for a fact, I've only had one other woman that I've known that's that persistent to send me emails through 6 different paths.
And we all know who that is.
They're all laughing here. We will not mention her name because
It is not
What's
me.
that? What's that?
It is not your
It's
wife.
not Mother Beth.
It is not my wife. So let me just say, Ruth was very persistent, and then I get a call from my good buddy Daniel from Tamar Center, and
Yep,
said,
I had talked to him first.
and Daniel said, "This Ruth's pretty incredible. I think you need to talk to her." I said, "Okay, I'm not hiding from her or anything. I just want to make sure it wasn't the next one."
So
That was
I honestly, when Diane showed it to me, I was somewhat wondering if it was a scam, because to me it sounded a little good, too good to be true, because my dream would be for someone from Harvard to message me about human trafficking and be like, I'm doing a paper. I'm like, yes, tell me all about your paper, please.
Well,
So,
I think it's all set up, and she's here to study Cro-Magnon man.
Yeah, you're going to see a 100-page thesis just about you come out in March of 2022.
you have spent
I
a
love
decent
it, I
amount
love
of time
it, I
at the
Troy's dream
Benetons.
come true.
Troy's dream come true. All right. So you got to Community Faith. What are you seeing just in your research? I know it's limited in your time in this, but seeing direct local church involvement with work in Thailand that has to do with sex trafficking, that's a huge. Let's agree here. Haley's here with the Mosaic Initiative. She's dedicated her life to kind of helping connect those kind of organizations together and resources and resourcing that work. It's prolific in the world right now, human trafficking. Sex trafficking is the number one, I think, crisis. Would you guys agree it's probably the number one thing right now that's just, to me, it's basically the slavery of people again?
I don't know how to judge whether it's number one.
Well,
I
they
think it
claim
depends
it's
what perspective
it's
you're
certainly in our
coming from.
top 4 or 5 things in the world, but I certainly think it's probably the people coming across, like in our country now, there's all kinds of people being trafficked across our border right now and used and peddled. We see that problem here. We see the problems in our local communities, whether it's sex trafficking or human trafficking. And then you get in other countries, Thailand, you can just be in Thailand. And whether you look at the labor who's building Thailand, or if you look at who is running the service industries, and you see different faces doing it, and those faces don't seem to have access to all the other pathways other people do. So
I can't speak to like how it's like, whether it's like a worse, like what, like gauging like crisis levels and things, but I can say that it's extremely prevalent and extremely pervasive.
It's certainly being talked about right now more than
definitely
something that needs it. It's such a complex thing that it needs so many different types of efforts to really combat, So I think it's
absolutely. Right. So when you got searching this, tell me,
it affects a lot of people's
tell me
lives.
what you found. I bet you found that I hope every local church is involved in issues like this and helping stop this. We need to help get people out of bondage and get them into freedom. So what have you found about churches? How many churches are you studying that are doing significant work in your target?
Yeah. Well, obviously my scope is a little bit limited. And so,
yeah, but the U.S. country is a big country.
It is. And so trying to think about how many is reasonable for me to cover in the amount of time I have and to be able to go deep and form relationships with churches and with organizations. So I think I have a good sense of the different types of organizations. I think I've heard most of the names of the major groups that are doing work in Thailand.
You're beginning to see what the real ones are that got real impact going. You're
Yeah,
hearing their names.
and they all talk about each other. As Daniel mentioned yesterday, they all kind of are starting to work together more, which I think is awesome.
That is a great thing,
really
and that's what Haley's going to be working to do as well. The more that happens, I think it'll strengthen that. Because
I totally agree.
There's tremendous, we'll talk about this maybe later, but there's a terrific level of burnout, and these organizations, there's people are it's just depressing. It's dark.
Yeah.
It's hard on the workers that are helping people out, and just being a resource to network with other people that can encourage, and maybe also you talking about it and churches talking about it more, also get more people going in to get in the fight, so to speak.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so
and it's
too.
like a constant learning, like from each other and from your own experiences, and like, as with any field, you want to see constant progression. And I think the best way that they're going to get that is through the partnerships they have. Like he mentioned, they part of the movement, they're at a specific conference, and it was put on by two groups, one in Australia and one called Chop Dai. And they started, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but they started that in Cambodia, and it really did, I think, radically like help these organizations find not just support, but like pursue excellence on another level that I think they're really setting, like they're pioneering and really setting that standard. I think you're gonna see some big shifts.
I think when you get done with this, it may bring this on the radar of some other churches as a really open field.
I hope so, because on the church side, I mean, there's really only a couple of churches that I'm really looking at, and that's hard because churches don't always keep their websites that updated. It's a weird search term to try and find like churches that have partnerships with groups in Thailand, and so a lot of times I'm talking to the groups in Thailand and telling me like, and asking them who are the churches you're working with, and then that's how I get
you got to work back a little bit.
Yeah.
So
that is probably the best.
What have
way
you
to
found
find
at
out.
at your level? Look, what churches have you found that you, at least in your study, that's going to be kind of your significant focus group based on everybody's conversation?
Yeah. So honestly, right now, I think I'm the ones that I've gone really deep with. There's two. There's yourselves, and then there's a church in Abilene, Texas, that I've gotten to speak to a lot of people. They're doing really amazing work.
So you've got a couple good focus churches. That's great. I really want to encourage pastors. Please get into this. Please share this with your pastor. If you're watching these casts, not only this cast, but go look up on our history for the Tamar Center Project. Ruth's part of that project as well. And please take a look at these. This is a serious subject. When we do the podcast, whether it's been put out or not yet, it's coming up for sure, the Mosaic Initiative. You're also going to learn about the issue here in our own country and how it's active here, both the local face of it and a global face. We need to, pastors, get this to your pastors. We need to address this. Churches need to begin to do outreach in more than just feeding people in their neighborhood, more than just the typical stuff. We're going to have to expand our perspective to the trafficking of people, because we're a people, as Christians, through the eras and ages, the Israelites were trafficked. We have this in our pedigree, but we also have a God that wants to liberate people. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for a church to have a fresh ministry that's relevant on the edge. And there's huge amounts of demand for people to get in the fight in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia. You can go all around the world and find places, Peru. You can go other continents.
Everywhere.
Liberia, we work in Liberia as well.
Yeah.
Liberia has a huge human trafficking issue. If you go to Hands Hope Foundation, we've got a whole segment on that Valerie Fry did on human trafficking.
A guy just reached out to me yesterday wanting to connect with you and Hands of Hope, but he's doing both. He's involved some with medical, but then mainly with the human trafficking things.
So, of course, you've been, Ruth, you've been our co-host at On the Dock with the Tamar series and some other work we're doing. Can you just analyze what have you learned so far about your look at the Tamar Center? You can check out the Tamar Center. It's the tamarcenter.org. It's a site in Thailand that we work with. What have you learned about your look at what Daniel and Steffi are doing in the Tamar Center?
Yeah, well, Daniel was actually one of the first people that I talked to when I started my research, and I was kind of hoping to just, have an introductory conversation, explain what I was doing, ask, can I work with you? Can I talk to some of your people? And we ended up talking for about an hour, and it was a conversation that I think has really shaped a lot of the research that I've done with since then. He went deep on some things. He went off about thinking about, the harmful impacts of short-term mission trips and, what it means to be a good partner to an organization and all of that. And so a lot of that, I came in with, some background knowledge, but my learning is coming from talking to people who are doing the work, right? Like I'm not here to tell people how to do this, that's not my job. And so I've learned so much from him, and I think he and Steffi have done an incredible job at just like showing me what it means to run an organization like this, the different pitfalls you can run into, the different challenges you face, especially like bringing faith into the conversation. I asked a question to them about this yesterday. We've been able to talk a lot about that. And I'm working with Christian organizations and non-Christian organizations, all partner with churches, but the organizations themselves are different. And so that's been like really interesting to see as well.
That's going to be interesting. I've made some good notes there about the harmful impact of short-term mission trips. We'll come back and talk about that and definitely in a roundtable, because that's a subject for me that I think we need to be very aware of. Yeah. That I've been with Daniel and Steffi on many trips. I've been over there. I go over there typically for a month at a time. Typically outside of COVID, we'd be there all January. I've spent most of my New Year's Eves in the air. Up until last year, we would be in the air, flying there on Cathay Pacific. Cathay Pacific, great airline. Yeah. It's a little bit better than our local 9-seater. It's about 100 times the size, not 100, like 10 times the size probably. You can run around the plane.
20 times the size.
They feed you 4 meals. They got 100,000 movie channels, and it's all great service. And then, so we've been over there, and then we go back and spend July. I've spent most New Year's Eves and most 4th of Julys since 2014 in Thailand, and I love it being there. We wear on 4th of July, we wear our America shirt. We always go see something at the theater. They always have one of the 4th of July movies going on, so we like that. So everybody tells us, Happy America Birthday. I love it. They celebrate it there. They love it. But we go back and forth, and we love there. But what we've seen there with Daniel and Steffi, we have seen the short-term group. I take short-term groups.
Yeah.
I do. And I always tell them, I said, are we a problem or are we an asset? And they said, you are a huge asset.
Yeah.
But they said most of our groups, and I'm
not trying to become burdensome.
I'm not trying to offend any of the YWAM, because they live off of YWAM too. But they said some of it's just devastating. Yeah. They come in for their experience, my trip. Yeah. And it's more thought of as a cruise trip or a short term. I need to not just thing in my bucket list. Or they come in with their religious, I don't want to call it Christian principle. They could be Christian people. I'm not slighting that, but they come in with a proselyting mentality that I'm agenda. Yeah, I'm going to save the world, and I'm going to give services if people want to bow to my God. And we all want people. We all want people to open their heart to God. Everybody at this table, we want people to love the Lord with all their heart, mind, soul, strength. But you can't do that forcefully. You can't do that with trickery. You can't substitute one form of abuse for another form of abuse. And Daniel and Steffi have told me war stories of having to manage and deal with these groups. And the one thing about our group is we don't let them do anything. They come in and do.
How do we best support the missionaries?
We make our own arrangements, my own vehicle travel. We stay at our own hotel place, and we just say, "What can we do?" And we always pick projects and say, "What project can we do for you?" And how can we? And then I know that come in and say, "You need to buy this." No, we buy everything. If we're going to paint something or fix it or fix their room, it's turn the key. Yeah. And we do not want to be a burden on people overseas, and we don't want to put our agenda. So I see that. I feel for them. And I think that's something we need to come back and talk a little bit about, because I want everybody to get engaged, but get engaged the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And short term's okay. I mean, but
It has to be done really well.
It has to be done really well, and it can lead to longer term impacts if you're really ready for a longer term relationship.
Right.
And I think that's part of it. Like, that's what I'm interested in hearing more about too, with what you find. I think a lot of it is like so relationship based, and that relationship is so important if you're wanting to create things that are sustainable and actually positively impact.
While we take short term teams over there, I know we're going back in 6 months, and everybody I say, I'll see you soon. We've been the 30 days, we'll be back. So we've spent as much as 2 months of a year there regularly. Right. And so when you have that attitude, whether you're taking different people on your trip, the relationships begin to be static, and the static relationships allow you to develop depth. And I just think we need churches not just to write checks, not just to send a short-term camping group over to have an experience. We need people to really build relationships, to understand the culture, the dynamics, the systems, and get in there and really make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need real stuff. We'll get deeper into that in a little bit later, because I think that's a great point you put out. Going a little deeper this, you've also been studying Haley here at the table. The Mosaic Initiative was one of our groups, and I know her organization is a young, fresh organization trying to do some creative stuff, and I think largely
brand spanking new.
And I'll just put a few words into Haley's mouth. I mean, your organization is really trying to network people that are doing the work, but at the same time resource people doing the work so that they don't get burnt out.
Yeah.
They have resources to get refueled and re-equipped.
Yeah.
And also some agencies that maybe aren't aware of it,
Yeah.
putting that on their target and then giving them tools.
And I think, like long-term goals too, is to take information and experiences that they've already, like they have the knowledge that they have, and to create resources, like more tangible resources from that information. Because a lot of them maybe even have, like one group maybe has great resources and experience in that area. We're just trying to make it accessible to other groups that would like to learn from them.
So what are some of your impressions on the work that she started here and where she's going?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's amazing. And one thing that I've seen, like also with the other church that I've worked with in Texas is that like a really important part of partnership is that the church in the U.S. is able to learn and grow from the work that's being done in Thailand. And so, that looks different everywhere. But I think if there's some kind of component where people in the congregation can see this is happening where we are too, and there's lessons that we can learn from people in Thailand.
Absolutely.
Because I think so often it becomes like a white savior, like, oh, we have so much to offer them. They have nothing to offer us. We're just, whereas it's like, no, actually they've been there doing the work for, decades. And that problem exists here.
I'd say there's actually more advancement on the human, like I think people maybe don't realize that, but there's been more advancement, I think, on the human trafficking front in Thailand and Cambodia probably than most places in the world. There's been movement there for
there's
a lot longer.
There's certainly an Asiatic.
We're actually probably quite
certainly
far behind
an
them.
overall Asian strategy to kind of address it in the whole Asian region, because you see in major conferences. We talked with Daniel about that.
Right.
They know each other now. They're beginning to collaborate in a great way. I would like to see us do that in the United States.
Yeah.
With our own trafficking issues.
I think that there's like a misconception that we're kind of like progressed a lot further than we are in the anti-trafficking movement here in the U.S. I mean, you look at even the amount of shelter, like of residential facilities for like minors coming out of trafficking, for example. Like it's staggering, like how little there are. I don't even know that there's as many as there are states. Like there's one, like for example, Missouri, there was, the place that I worked had maybe 4 beds, but it was like serving a pretty huge region of people, and had very little like capacity for like, they had a waiting line.
Well, listen, let's think about it like this. I mean, there's a lot of good work happening, in this, but the problem is everyone, when you listen to this, you're going to be thinking it on the dock that we're talking about a problem that's over there. It is very clear that sex trafficking is happening right here where we are in Williamson County. It's an issue right here. I can take you and point it out. Haley can give you kind of, she can't blow people's covers, but it's happening here. It's not just this overseas thing. It's a reality here. So,
and beyond that too, like what's happening overseas is like pretty inherently linked to what's happening in the West. Like so many of the customers of trafficking that, in the Philippines, for example, with IJM last summer, all the customers, like the people who are paying to see children being exploited over video call, like they're all in the US, the UK, Australia. So it's not a problem that just because like physically the people being exploited are overseas, like all the exploiters
The users
are here.
and the victimizers are here.
Yeah, exactly.
They're right here.
A lot of
them are. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's like obviously victimizers everywhere, but I think
Right.
the West is.
But there's a huge appetite.
Huge part of
There's
the
a
global
huge appetite
problem.
in the
Yes.
U.S. for such things, and we
Yes.
have as we've got people here looking to go overseas to have those fun trips, so to speak, which exploit people and destroy people. And what's happened is I think the desire for that has caused a market here to develop locally as well.
I'm sure.
And so it's just kind of getting in our
Yeah.
system.
Well, if you even look at like who's exploited here, like for example, the massage industry, there's another paper put out about illicit massage here. I think it was Polaris Project. And it talks about, the demographic of the women who are exploited. It is typically, statistically, largely Asian women.
Yeah, I mean, racial
And
fantasy
so,
and,
yes.
and ideas about what like Asian women are like, and this idea that they're willing to do these things that maybe like white girls won't, like all of that
Right,
is wrapped
right.
up in this
And you
too.
no longer have to go to Asia to have that experience. You can find it
disgusting, yeah.
right in our county here. So it is proliferating. I want to wrap up this segment. We're going to come back and go much deeper in part 2. But I want just give us your abstract on your thesis. Just give us a little bit of a. I know you haven't written it yet, but if you were to write it right now, why Thailand? Why anti-trafficking? What are you learning? Give us a little abstract here.
Yeah, so I think in my paper, I really want to look at the unique situation of Thailand and why, Thailand's never been colonized, unlike basically every other nation in the Southeast Asia region, and how that has allowed for the unique development of like this sex trafficking industry there, as well as faith. And so thinking about, a lot of other countries, faith was forcefully brought in, and conversion was heavily tied with colonialism. That didn't necessarily happen in Thailand in the same way. So looking at how those historical factors created the environment that exists there now, such that organizations can go in and do this work. Looking at Christians who are interested in this work in the U.S., the kinds of ways they're thinking about their own faith, their responsibility to go out and do something about it that leads them to do this work, how that's received on the other end, what those partnerships look like, what makes those partnerships successful, and what, I guess, organizations and churches can learn and how they can grow from that. So that's what I'll be writing about, hopefully.
It's going to be super interesting to read.
We need.
I think you hit on an
I'd like to hear
important
more
point,
about that.
Yeah, we're gonna dig
The
in.
colonization point.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Oh,
hear
I don't
more.
know if I know that much about it yet, but
No,
Well,
I
but
just,
I think
but
it's
what you were
something that's
saying, I'd like
important
to. Yeah, I'd like to talk
I think
about
it's
that.
something specifically important for people to think about, like with the conversation we had with Steffi and
Yeah, and I missed the end
Daniel,
of that.
of like when you are starting to like push faith in that when there's historic background in a culture that's seen that used in a detrimental way.
So it doesn't
for
become a
control
new
and
form.
power.
It doesn't become a new
Yeah,
form
well,
of oppression.
there's also just like a level of like there needs to be sensitivity around that and understanding that it can come like it can be exploitive in its own sense.
That's right.
And you have to be very like
we can
wise
we can
about-
spread the good news without paving concrete with it over the top of you.
Well,
Certainly.
and
you
we've
can share
talked about how the gospel wasn't really taken ever, I guess, to certain parts of.
Well,
Asia.
Thailand's one of the places that you don't have any apostles reaching Thailand. You don't have any. I mean,
So in a way, that's a positive.
Thomas dies
I guess.
in India. The apostle Thomas dies in
Thomas.
India. Nobody gets to that region, and so really, we're kind of left with us. The church today is kind of doing that work. The question is, are we doing it well? Are we doing it bad? Some are doing well, some are doing bad. How do we do that in a way that authentically represents Jesus Christ and what he really wants best for us? I don't think he necessarily wants our agenda. He's not interested in Sadducees or Pharisees. He wants us to do it the way that he told us to do it. And I think we have to look at our motives, and we'll come back and go deeper in that. That's a great subject for as we keep going. Ruth, is it okay if your Harvard email, I have that. Is it okay if I give that out if people have information? Do you?
Sure.
Okay, I want to check. I forgot to ask you. I've got it up on the screen. You can see her email address at Harvard edu. You can get that down, and you can see that. If you have maybe a church or you got experience with that, and you've got something you're doing over there, send her information about it. Or you can also send it through to us at info@onthedoc.org, and I'll get it to her as well. So that's her information. Look, she's 21. Leave her alone. She's too smart for you anyway. But if you've got stuff that would really help her work and sharpen it, you've got an organization or something that's going on, let her know about that. Put it on her radar. Do it the right way.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, I'd love to have that. We're going to be back in part 2 in the U.S. Church and Anti-Human Trafficking Work in Thailand series. And we'll be going a little deeper into this. We'll get into some of these questions we've been pushing off. And if we don't get them there, we'll get them in the roundtable. That is for sure. So thank you so much, Ruth, for what you're doing. Thank you guys around the table. Mother Beth and Haley, great work in round 1 here. We're getting started. We're going to peel back some layers in part 2, get a little deeper. Join us at onthedoc.org and email us at info@onthedoc.org, especially if you need that contact with Ruth. We'd love to give that to you as well. Thanks for joining us on our platform that you're on today. Go find some of our other platforms and get connected with those at YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Facebook, Roku, Rumble, and SermonNet. Download that SermonNet app. It's got our archive on it as well. You can find our archive stuff also at YouTube. And we'd love to hear just reach out to social media. Tell us what you think about this. Give us your comments and share things. Be nice. You can be critical about things, but do it in a proper way. And you can reach out to us on our Facebook channel as well as Instagram, Telegram, and Twitter. Please make sure you subscribe, hit like, notify, and share this segment with other people, because we need people to hear about this and the need for you to get out of the shallows and into the deep with us. And always, we want you to become our Patreon partner or sponsor. We'd love to have you as part of the show. If you don't have a church and you live in the Southern Illinois area, we'd love to have you at Community Faith Church at 10 o'clock on Sundays. Wednesday at 6:30, that we're here in the Marion area. Check that out. You can find us at coftv.com. That's our website. We have a TV channel as well, a virtual campus. You can join us that way if you're out of the area and watch us on the embedded viewer, or you can go find our Facebook or YouTube channel under Community Faith Church. We'd love to have you in the studio. Again, guys, all of you, thank you. Ruth, thank you. Mother Beth and Haley. We'll be back in part 2. It's going to be an incredible journey as we get out of the shallows and into the deep. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pastor Troy.